across the waves, you can't hear a sound. There's no fair trials, no train, no liberties, no tea. We've colonized America, we won't stand for tyranny. Okay, and it's too late to apologize. It's too late. I said it's too late to apologize. It's too late. You paid your foolish tax, read the acts, and they just won't do. Wanna make it clear we believe this much is true. All men were created with certain unalienable rights. Among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's too late to apologize. It's too late. I said it's too late to apologize. It's too late. Halfway across the globe and we're standing on new ground.
Good evening, my friends. We are live. This is Live Free or Die. Actually, no. It's the Eli King Show. But thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed this wonderful video. So we can remind you about yesterday and why we celebrated yesterday. Because most Americans, I'm ashamed to say, do not know why we celebrate Independence Day. They did actually a survey I saw on YouTube where they surveyed some Americans. And most of them believe we fought against France, Germany, and they don't even know that this was actually against Great Britain. And the Great Declaration of Independence was signed by, I believe, 54 members of brave Americans who risked their sacred honor, their lives, and their liberty, basically signed their own death warrants to bring us the country and the liberty we have today. So, in honor of our forefathers, I will be reading the unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America, the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, so with that, let's get started. The unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitles them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Now, some of these things that they talk about then are happening now. This is why I emphasize, and I beg you to remember and honor the Declaration of Independence. Let's read on. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. All men are created equal, my friends. And they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to their effect, their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience have shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer with evils are sufferable than to the right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Basically, he's talking about men and human beings naturally become evil. They can't resist the power that they hold. They hold so much power that they tend to abuse it. But when a long train of abuses and observations, pursuing invariable the same object advances and designed to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King George of Great Britain, my American friends, that's who we fought for our independence. Not France, not Germany, or any other country. It was Great Britain. Please remember your history. When you celebrate and you have barbecues and steaks and beers and hot dogs, you don't even know what the hell you're celebrating, half of you. And it ashames me. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and observations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused to assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Sounds like our president today, Barack Obama, King Obama. See, the same things that went on then are going on now. This is why it is important to understand the history of the Declaration of Independence and to save our United States Constitution. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended he has utterly neglected to attend them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people who relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right to inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies and placed unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such disillusions, to cause to cause others to be elected, whereby legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose of obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners. And this also talks about the immigration reform that we're having today. We'll get into that a little bit later as well. Refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations here, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands, excuse me. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices, and the amount has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. Homeland Security, the Redcoats, they're one and the same to me. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislators. Posse comitatus, when you see troops occupying our streets, that is a violation of posse comitatus. This is what they were talking about. Troops, a military police state. All right, let's read on. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts and pretended legislation for quartering large bodies of armies of armed troops among us. Yeah, sounds like the military-industrial complex to me. Also, things that go on today that happened back then. He has basically for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. Sounds like Attorney General Eric Holder protecting Obama for Fast and Furious, and protecting himself for the murders of American citizens. That's why I re-emphasize what went on then is going on today. So let us not forget history, because those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. Yes, this is like the Federal Reserve and the IRS. This is what they were talking about in the Declaration of Independence. When the Federal Reserve was signed into law in 1913 and then therefore enacted the Internal Revenue Service to basically steal our hard-earned money, is a violation of the Declaration of Independence. Alright, it appears we have a phone call. Let's take the phone call and see what the caller has to say. Alright, the caller is gone. If the caller wants to call back, or anybody else wants to call up in regards to our Declaration of Independence, the number is 1212-245-7273. We are live. It is the day after our Independence Day, July 4th, July 5th. Let's read on. He has also deprived us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. Now, this has happened to me personally. You see, I was denied a trial by my own peers, a jury of my peers, because the district attorney was such a coward. He knew I was going to win. So, in the beginning, they trump up all these felony charges against you. And in New York State, when they drop it down to such a, what they call a B misdemeanor, then you are only entitled to a bench trial, which is a trial by one judge who decides the fate of your future. This is disgusting, and this practice should be ended. No matter how minute the charge, you should have the right to a trial by jury. A jury of 12 to decide your fate. This is what the Declaration of Independence is all about. This is why I do what I do today. And unfortunately, this is what it takes for most people to wake up in this country. It is what actually woke me up. They probably went after me because at the time I was digging into the JFK assassination pretty heavily. So this is how they came after me. But I still won, and I'm winning today, and I'm trying to remind you about the rights you have, my fellow Americans. And let us not forget these rights, please. Let us not forget the Declaration of Independence. Let us not forget the Constitution. All right, let's read on. Like I said, in many cases, they have deprived us of the benefits of a trial by jury, the jury of our peers. It's disgusting. It really is. All right. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried and for pretended offenses. Yes, they do this to people. They'll ship you over to Saudi Arabia to black sites where our laws have no effect, and they will torture you. They will waterboard you. Same thing goes on today. For arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fill instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. For suspending our own legislators and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. Basically, like Mr. Obama says, I have a pen and I have a phone. Where Congress won't act, I will. And those are the words of a dictator, a tyrant, a person who wants to be king. For suspending our legislators. Oh, I read that part. He has abducted. Oh no, he has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. When they closed down coal factories, when they shut down our farms. See, the same things are going on today. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death. It is like what they do with the United Nations. They ship in Chinese troops, Russian troops, Canadian troops, Mexican troops to subjugate our people to United Nations law. When our law is governed by the people and the spirit of 1776. This is our flag, okay? This is not our flag. That's why there's a big X over it. Death to the United Nations and their monster perverts that molest children here on Friday's paper. We'll go over that in a minute. Scumbags. He is at this time transporting. I already read that. Large armies. All right. Yeah. You know, he has constrained our fellow citizens, taking captive on high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. It's just like hiring mercenaries. When you hire the German mercenaries that George Washington defeated in Trenton, or you hire Indians to do your dirty work. Mercenaries, Homeland Security, United Nations troops. This is what goes on then and now. All right, let's read on. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may defined by a tyrant, a unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Sounds like Obama again. Obama's unapproval rating is at an all-time high. As a matter of fact, a recent Gallup poll has declared Barack Hussein Obama the worst president in the history of the United States. This is from a Gallup poll from the American people, my friends. All right, let's read on. Nor we have been waiting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of their attempts by the legislative to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these observations which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and the consanguinity. Oh boy. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, and peace friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions to do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and ought to be free and independent states, and that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. That is not going on today, my friends. Like I said, with the Federal Reserve, the head of the Federal Reserve is based in Britain, in Great Britain. And that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all acts and things independent states may of right do, and for the support of the Declaration, with a firm reliance of the protection of the divine province, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. That, my friends, is the Declaration of Independence. Let us not forget all the Americans that spilled their blood to defend this declaration and our Constitution. Now let's move on really quick because we're running out of time. We got about 3 minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about immigration reform, and I want to give you my view and my opinion of it. hold that thought. You see, my friends, whatever happened to give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free? See, I welcome all immigrants. Whoever wants to come to this country and be a good, outstanding citizen, I welcome you. I only require one thing: that you learn the history of our country and our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, and you swear to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Once you can do that, in my eyes, you are an American. So you're all welcome. You're all welcome. As long as you're not going to come here and try to take away my rights so that the Democratic Party can ship you in here by the busload so you can vote Democratic to take away my Constitution and my God-given rights that so many Americans have died for. So like I said, as long as you're willing to uphold my Constitution, you are welcome in my country. You're all welcome. Alright, last story. They talk about this monster at the UN. He molested 13 kids. United Nations kids, pre-K kids, allegedly. Now, he could be being set up, or he could be a UN monster. The UN is full of monsters, my friends. That's why I say, before we go, death to the New World Order, death to the United Nations, and death to the Federal Reserve. Alright, my friends, we are out of time. Join me next week and every week, Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only on MNN.org. God bless America. God save the United States Constitution. And if you have received this transmission, you are the resistance. Good evening, my friends. We are live. This is Live Free or Die. Actually, no. It's the Eli King Show. But thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed this wonderful video. So we can remind you about yesterday and why we celebrated yesterday. Because most Americans, I'm ashamed to say, do not know why we celebrate Independence Day. They did actually a survey I saw on YouTube where they surveyed some Americans. And most of them believe we fought against France, Germany, and they don't even know that this was actually against Great Britain. And the Great Declaration of Independence was signed.
Across the globe, and we're standing on new ground. Live with certain unalienable rights among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's too late to apologize. It's too late. I said it's too late to apologize. It's too late. It's too late. I said it's too late to apologize. It's too late. You paid your foolish tax, read the acts, and they just won't do. We wanna make it clear we believe this much is true. All men were created. Halfway across the globe and we're standing on new ground. Screaming across the waves, you can't hear the sound. There's no fair trials, no train, no liberties.